Show, our entree to the world of culture, gender, sexuality, tradition, business, and so much more. Hi, I'm Regina Gershman.
And I'm Dr. Sam Dubé. Together, we're going to take you on an extraordinary journey with engaging people from around the world, starting from right here in Ottawa, the capital of Canada.
Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back to the Etiquette Show. I'm Conchetta Rose. Ronny Dawson is a Texas oil field worker whose UFO alien encounter received international attention. He was featured on an episode of Caught on Camera on Japanese TV and made an appearance on NBC First Look Roswell Experiencer panel. He is the author of the Ronny Dawson UFO Story, has been a guest on a multitude of radio shows, and his story has been featured on websites across the globe. Joining us today on the Etiquette Show is Ronny Dawson. Ronny, thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's great to be here on the Etiquette Show. It's a real honor, and thank you for asking me on.
Of course, our pleasure. Where are you right now?
Right now, I'm actually traveling across the state of Texas because doing some pre-op surgery. I have surgery like 2 days from now. So.
We wish you a safe and quick healing, of course. So thank you for making.
Oh yeah.
And we very much appreciate it.
Life never stops. You know, you got to keep going with the flow.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Knowing what I know about you and hearing you say something like that, that's inspiring. Okay, so let's get right to it. You are, in fact, an alien contactee, correct?
That's right, yes.
So can you tell in as much detail as you like, what was that first experience like for you?
Well, I mean, I've been working out here in the oil field out in the middle of nowhere for 24 years, and I never saw anything. So when I started seeing these mysterious lights, it was crazy, creepy, exciting, and then I started seeing the craft, and I started putting two and two together that these guys, I don't think they're from around here. You know, it's nothing explainable. So, and then I seen them abduct a cow. I seen them abduct a cow from about a quarter mile away. And when I seen the cow being lifted up into the blue beam, I knew that these are the guys they're talking about on TV all the time, abducting cattle and stuff. And I was afraid they were going to abduct Ronny. So I was glad to get out of there that night. And then I kept seeing more UFOs, and we decided we would like do something, thinking outside the box. I decided I would shoot a green laser at the UFO, and if we could detect any beam deviation due to the craft's propulsion system, we'd have some real evidence to bring to the public, you know, about we were being visited from another world. And we did see the UFO. I did fire the laser at the UFO and onto the UFO, but we didn't see the deviation that we had hoped to see, and we didn't get the whole thing on recorded like we were hoping to do. But the next night they paid me a little visit at my house. I had an alien home invasion in my home. So they paralyzed me in bed, and they basically ransacked my house until they got to where the laser was being kept. And so that was pretty scary.
Wait, can I pause you right there and let's backtrack just a little bit. First of all, I want to know what in your mind made you think to have this idea to grab a laser and see if you could reflect some light on it. What gave you that idea?
Well, I was watching some Bob Lazar and stuff like that, where he had worked at Area 51, and he was talking about how they bend time and space and stuff like that, and so I thought, well, you know, if you shine a laser beam, you know, if it's warping the fabric of space around the craft, it should make the light appear to do something odd. And if we could video record that, we'd really have some solid evidence. So it was just really a way of thinking outside the box and hoping to get something.
Yeah, very clever, very clever. So, okay, so you have this experience with the laser, and then how much later did they come into your home?
The next night. It was the very next night they came into my home and paralyzed me in bed and basically ransacked my house until they got to where the laser was being kept. Yes.
Right. So when you say they came in, were you like, what were you doing at the time? Were you already asleep and you saw them enter, or, what did that look like?
Well, it's a little creepier than that. There was a hole, like something had tore a hole in my floor, and I guessed it was my cat. So I thought my cat had like chewed a hole through the floor, but I was like, he was a declawed cat, so I don't know how he could have done that. But I patched the hole up and recovered the cat from underneath the house and put him back in the house and patched the hole up. And when it was time to go to bed, I just laid down in bed. I no sooner hit the bed than they stuck me to it. I thought I was having a heart attack, some kind of a medical condition, because I was still awake. I could move my eyes, but everything else felt like it was just pinned to the bed. And even the cat, when they started running around the house, the cat scared him, and he retreated up onto the bed with me. So he's laying there, he's walking around the bed like it's not affected at all, but I'm still stuck, paralyzed to the bed for some reason. And so these things are running through the house, knocking things over and breaking stuff. And then I've seen them run by the bedroom door. And then there's two of them running around in there. I've seen one run across a vertical wall, and because I was clinging to the hope that it was a squirrel or a raccoon or something that got in my house. But when I seen it run across a vertical wall, that pretty much told me that, yeah, this is probably more related to what went on last night than something explainable. And finally one stopped in front of the door. It was about 18 inches tall. It had a humanoid face. It had an exoskeleton shell on it, and the shell had like thorn appendages on it. And I was like 10 feet from it and got a good look at it, and it was a pretty scary looking thing, whatever it was. And then they ran up underneath the bed, and they were lifting me up in the bed and slamming it back to the floor. Then the cat took off because he didn't want no part of that. So, and I didn't see anything give chase as the cat ran out of the room. But then they stopped lifting the bed and slamming it, and they started clawing up underneath the box springs. I thought they were going to claw up through the mattress and kill me. I was scared to death and couldn't move, still paralyzed, and I thought I was going to die, and after a while, I got really angry, and it was like I'm in a fight for my life. All you can do is do everything you can. And so I decided I was going to break free from the force that's holding me, grab a golf club, and go to killing these things. And I couldn't, I tried to break free this time. I put out so much strength and force trying to get loose from it that it affected my heart and my breathing. And I had a feeling it almost killed me. I think, if you fought it hard enough, it probably would kill you. And when I seen that I couldn't do it, I just like, I'm completely at their mercy. I can't do anything. So anyway, they got over to where the laser was being kept, and then they just took off. And then when they released me, the funny thing was my body jumped out of bed. I cussed, and then I grabbed the golf club out of the corner and was really angry. I had tried to do this 5 minutes earlier, and now my body's doing it without me telling it to. So I feel like it's freaking me out because I ain't telling my body to do this. It's like I tried to do something. They block it from being processed, and when they release me, that instructions got processed, and it was like my body was like a robot acting on its own. But I got the golf club in my hand. I'm angry, and I went on an alien hunt. And they had every cabinet, every drawer, the whole house open. And there was some dishes knocked over and broken. There was a lamp knocked over on the computer desk, and even in the living room, they had pulled all the drawers on that, all the cabinets and stuff out in there too. So they were definitely searching for something.
Right. But now they took the green laser of yours with them, right?
No, I thought it would be gone for sure. But when I got to where it was being kept, it was right there in its case where it was supposed to be. But I had it locked up in its cabinet, and they had unlocked the cabinet. It was a gun cabinet, and they had unlocked the cabinet and to where the laser was being kept. I guess they took a look at it or whatever they did with it, but they did leave it, and it still worked. So I was shocked it was still there.
Oh, they didn't, nothing was removed from your house, just things were turned upside down, basically.
Yeah, they didn't take anything. I crawled up under the house the next day. I had a pistol and I had a knife and I had a spotlight on my forehead because I was scared to death that they were nested up underneath my house, but I could never live in this house again with any kind of peace unless I go up underneath there and make sure these things ain't nested up underneath there. So I went up underneath there and I had a big sack of mothballs I had thrown up underneath there because in Texas we think they keep snakes and stuff like that out from underneath there, and all those mothballs I had put up underneath there were gone. So I don't know if they took them or if they had just gotten wet and dissolved. I don't know, but it was just kind of that's the only thing that I found that was missing in the house.
The mothballs. That's funny. That's interesting.
Right.
Right? So what do you think they wanted from you? What do you think that whole ransacking was about for you?
Well, I think these little beings they used. I think they're subservience to something else, and that I did get to meet later on. And just like the gray aliens are subservience for gathering genetic material from people here on Earth. They're viral resistant and stuff like that, so they're well suited to the job. These guys were well suited for the little recon job they did at my house. And I think they're both subservience to something else, and I got to meet these something else later on. And
so how long ago?
And it was one.
Sorry to interrupt you. How long ago did this encounter?
What is it? August 2017 was the first time I got to meet the ones that I believe that the other ones are subservience to. One was a blue lady, and she had a big ruby-like thing glued to her cheek, and she had like a diamond on her forehead, and she had a tattoo on her left cheek, and she was probably about 6'8" tall, and had short black hair, and very athletic looking. But she was with another woman that was a cat lady. I mean, she had big hair, but you could see her ears poking through her hair, and she looked just like a human, except right here on her nose it turned into a lion's mouth right here. I mean, even her eyebrows and her eyes look human, but when you go down to the tip of her nose, it turned into a cat's mouth, and it even had whiskers on it, and the whiskers were trimmed off at about 2.5 inches. And that came out of her upper lip. It was pretty. When I took a good look at that, when I realized that somebody's not playing a joke on me, that they're really here and they were really visiting, and they told me they'd been watching me, oh. and they interrupted my sleep for a conversation, and they apologized for it.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is in 2017 where you met the two lady aliens?
Yes.
Okay, and
yes,
communicated with you.
Yes, we had I don't know, it was probably 20-30 minute conversation. Wow. And they basically they want to make contact with us. They want to know if they made open contact with us, if the masses of the people here would be willing to donate genetic material, you know. And I said, yeah, if we had open contact and we're friends, you know, I said the people here would be more than willing to give you what you need, you know, especially if that's the price of the ticket to actually visit with them, you know. So, and then they asked me how I think that we should go about making contact. And first, you know, I told them that you're going to have to give me something that's alien material, an alien machine that does something that we're not capable of doing, made of material that we don't have here. And then I thought, you know, what would be better than that would be just a global display of alien presence. Bring a big ship in and fly it all around the world till everybody's seen it. And I said it'd be a big wake-up call for humanity, but that's what we need. I said, that, in my opinion, that would be the way to go. And they said, thank you. You know, we'll pass it on to the others. And
wow. So, okay. So, but now it seems like if you were able to have a conversation with them, you don't seem like you were afraid during that encounter at all. There was no fear. Well,
at first it was hard to grasp. I thought my wife was playing a joke had a couple of her friends pulling some kind of a stunt. And then when I took a good look at the cat lady's mouth, I realized, these girls aren't from here, so, and then I kind of dealt with the reality, that all of a sudden I'm thrown into a situation where I represent every man, woman, and child on planet Earth and all of humanity. And there's the right thing to do. And the right thing to do was to tell them that I'd be willing to help them, in a meeting of our two worlds in any way I possibly could, but I didn't really know where that was taking me. I didn't know I had volunteered for the project that they were involved in, so it kind of pulled me into the alien agenda that happened in February 2020.
Okay.
During that time, they got a genetic sample from me. They made a clone body of me. It took them 2.5 years to grow it to adulthood. February 2020, they took my physical consciousness and transferred it into that alien clone on an alien planet.
Wow. Okay, wait. I have to slow you down just a little bit. Let's break, because you just said in about 30 seconds. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In a way, you have this conversation, you don't realize that you're volunteering, but you somehow give consent to being a part of this. And
Right.
Do they continuously appear, or was it years in between sightings?
Oh, no. It's for 2.5 years, I didn't see anything. It was like nothing.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, boom,
So
no warning. And they just pulled me. Yeah, because and I think what they're doing is even before we make open contact, they're already working on the means of interdimensional transportation for us. Like it may be too far to take our physical bodies to where they're at, but they can transfer our physical consciousness into. They want to transfer it into a clone body, but see, my clone body can only hold me. They can't put you in my clone body, so they're needing large quantities of genetic material so they can make genetic clones, so that they can transfer consciousness into them. It will accept many consciousness, not just mine. So I think that's what it appears to be anyway.
Mm-hmm. So what? I have questions about what that feels like for you when that was happening for you. First of all, did you met your clone in person?
No, I never met him. They took my physical consciousness and transferred me into him. And there was another contactee there named Jonathan Boisi from South Africa, and he was familiar with the Ronny Dawson clone. And the ET, he said, well, meet Ronny Dawson. And he goes, yes, I'm familiar with Ronny Dawson. And the ET said, no. She said, the Ronny Dawson from back there. And he said, oh my goodness. He said, so this is your first trip? I said, yes, first trip. And he was like really excited, even though he was familiar with the clone of me. He realized that I was actually inside the thing. So it was like a first time meeting for me and him. And the guy told me, he said, I said, where are we at? He said, he goes, I can tell you it ain't Earth. And he said, your first clue would be look at the sun. And I looked up at the sun, and it's much larger than ours and not near as bright. You can actually stare at it for a couple of seconds, and you could almost see the fiery wave go across it like it was a dark red, and then yellow would move across it like there was a flame moving across it. So, and it was much larger in the sky than our sun. So I'm like, oh my goodness. But the place we were at, it had green rolling hills, not one tree. There was about 250 style houses with white picket fences around them. And every house looked identical. And it had streets in between the house, but not one car anywhere. And I even looked at the asphalt. I used to work in road construction. I know that we put asphalt down, we spread gravel on top of it. It's how we make roads. But this asphalt, it was like the rocks were mixed in with the asphalt itself and like laid down like carpet. So it looked like a road, but it was actually built different than a road. So it was like a simulation town that they had built on this planet where God knows where it's at. Wow,
that is overwhelming. And throughout this whole experience, did you ever feel that overwhelming sensation of like this is literally out of this world? This is so far beyond our earthly human comprehension. Did you ever feel like this can't be happening? I must be going crazy.
Well, I double check certain things. Like they would use words that aren't in my vocabulary. They use the word estrus to describe this situation this female was in up there on the alien planet. And estrus is not a word in my vocabulary. I've never used it, never heard of anyone using it. I actually had to go look it up on Google to see what it meant. So they spoke with their mouths. Even the cat lady spoke with her mouth, but she had trouble making certain words because her mouth wasn't built right. But they spoke English just as, good, proper English, not I speak Texan, but these guys are speaking proper English. But I could understand what they were saying. There was a little bit of miscommunication at times, but for the most part, we could understand each other pretty well, and they're very intelligent, and they seem to have good intentions. It's just, I think some of the guys that work for them may not be have such a kind hand at what they do, like the Greys and the little aliens that ransacked my house. So,
right. So, do you feel like this was your experiences? Are they mostly benevolent experiences, or do you feel like there's hostility underlying or something?
Well, these guys are, they're mostly benevolent, but they told me, they said they found us in the latter part of the 40s because our nuclear testing sent light and radiation off of one of their planets, and they thought they were going to be interdimensionally attacked, and in fact they have a defensive countermeasure set up to avert such an attack, and they warned me. They said if our nuclear testing triggers one of their defensive countermeasures, we could lose a continent. It could destroy a good part of our planet. And they said that we're going to communicate that to your government whenever we make contact, and we're not willing to take it down. We need it. We've survived because of it, and we're not willing to take it down. And if your nuclear testing accidentally triggers one, we're sorry. We'll give you a sorry in advance. But
wow, well, that's kind of, nuclear testing in general is terrifying to me, but the concept of it literally backfiring in that sense, that's scary stuff. And that feels like, do you feel like what their agenda is?
Well, I know they want to make open contact with us. I know they've been watching us since the latter part of the 40s, and I'm like, why wouldn't they be able to speak English? They've been here as long as I have. I've been here since '60, and I speak English. So, the thought of them speaking English, I have no problem with because they've been here longer than I have. So, and they would have to know how to speak English if they were going to observe us. But like they said, they thought we were in allegiance with a group that had attacked them, and they were very cautious and suspicious of us for many years. They researched us long enough now that they're comfortable with us, and in fact, their people of the world have seen and watched us. And in fact, some of our clothing designs have become popular on their planet. They had ritualistic clothing that they wore on occasion, but they didn't have common clothing that they wore on a day-to-day basis. And since just watching us and the way we are, some of the clothing designs have become popular on their world. They make them from the products on their world, and to mock the images of the stuff that we have on our world. So they said just watching us has already affected their world. And the women are really liking the clothes, and the men are frustrated because they have to take off their clothes before they have sex. So it's frustrated the male species, they said. So
that happens on Earth too, I think.
Yes.
Last time you were contacted?
Yeah, the last time I talked to him was February 2020. I haven't heard anything since. I don't know if they were, after the things that happened to us in 2020, I hope they just hadn't given up on us, but I think it probably will happen again, and it probably will happen with short notice.
Yeah. Do you feel like there are any aliens on Earth already that are living amongst us and maybe we don't know, or they're underground?
Yes, I'm afraid there is. I can't really say a whole lot about it, but I know a guy who knows one, and the guy actually proved that he was one by making a small spaceship appear and disappear a couple of times, just to prove his point. And so they're here, and the guy lives in a house, has a job, drives a car. And you wouldn't ever think that he wasn't something other than a human, except he can make his little spaceship appear and disappear at will. And I'm hoping to get to meet him.
Yeah, do you think that's a possibility for you?
Yes, he said he'd be willing to meet me, but if the circumstances were right. So I'm hoping I get to see this little spaceship trick. I would love to see that myself.
Yeah, well, I would love to invite you back for a future interview should that happen. I would love to know what happened there. It was
right.
If there's anything you can tell us, our audience here, like that your experiences have given you insight into this whole other world, what would you tell us? Should we be afraid? Should we be prepared for anything? Should we be open to it? What should we do?
Well, I think since they're already working on the means of interdimensional travel, I think things could change here quickly if we would just open our minds up and admit that they're here and acknowledge that they're here and be open to open contact, which they are open to, it sounds like. So, and I think, man, life could change drastically for us, you know. It's like, because technology is something you can either struggle to figure it out on your own or it can be gifted. I'm in a Toyota Sienna right now. I don't know anything about the thing, but I paid the dealer enough money, and they gifted me with it. So, gifted technology is a wonderful thing. So I get to drive around in this thing, but I don't know everything about it. So.
Wow. Well, Ronny, thank you so much for joining us here on the Etiquette Show. That was incredibly enlightening. And, you know, again, we wish you the best and happy healing for you. And please reach out should you have any more contacts. We would love to hear about it here, okay?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, see you next time. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back to the Etiquette Show. I'm Conchetta Rose. Erin Montgomery relocated to her hometown in Colorado after living for 20 years in the alien-crazed city of Roswell, New Mexico. She was proud to be one of the few locals who actually attended the annual UFO festival for the lectures. She works as a marriage and family counselor by day and does healings, readings, and shamanic energy work after hours. Following in the footsteps of Yvonne Smith and others, Erin is actively working towards being able to help other alien contactees come to terms with and perhaps learn from their unique experiences. Today on the Etiquette Show, we have with us Erin Montgomery. Erin, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. That's great.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's just jump right in. So you are, in fact, an alien contactee, correct?
Yes, I have been my whole life, apparently.
Okay, so tell us, when was your first experience? How old were you? And what was that like?
Well, that's one of the things about being a contactee is you don't remember these things linearly. I did not understand that I was a contactee as a child until I was in around 1920, then memory started to come back. And so I think this is very common with a lot of us. Some are aware from very small, but I'm not going to say most recent memory popping up, but in the last 6 months, I realized I did have contact around the age of 4. Wow. And so it just kind of came to me. I saw myself in a very white room. The walls were all rounded. The doorway was round, and I was sitting on the floor with other children, and we were manipulating blocks, like with telekinesis or something, floating them back and forth, like playing catch, but in slow-mo and using our minds. And I remember a small gray type alien being crossing through the door, past the doorway, with another little boy in tow. And it was just like a little 5-second clip of memory. Boom, I got that. So Yeah. So, I mean, it's a really strange experience in that I don't, I wasn't 4 in remembering this. I was 45, 46 in remembering this, and so it's a very strange progression of understanding of life, I guess you could say.
I would imagine so, considering you're not, when you have a normal life memory, if you had a memory that you pulled from 4 years old of your parents or a sibling or something like that, you grow up with those memories and they shape the person that you are, right? So,
Correct.
So, and form your new opinions and things like that. So to remember something at 45 years old, something that could have very easily shaped the person you are all throughout your life. I mean, how did you find that memory? How did that happen for you?
I honestly don't remember what was going on. I think I was just having a conversation with another experiencer and it popped up. And that's kind of how these things happen. You'll either dream something that happened as a child and you can explore that through regression and things like that. I have had meeting somebody and having flashes of memory coming up of an experience that I had with them on a ship because the support around being an experiencer is extremely important. So that brings us in contact with other people that are experiencing these same things. And oftentimes we're finding that we have had these experiences together, even though we had never known each other, we thought, at that moment. One memory came to me when I was married. It was a couple of years ago, 2018. My husband was walking through the bedroom trying to get out to the bathroom because it was dark. He had a light on his cell phone, using it as a flashlight. It accidentally, flashed in front of my face, and boom, I had memories pop up. So it's random how it happens.
Right. So it seems like there's always a trigger, though, right?
There is usually some sort of trigger, and in that case, it was the light in my face, and it brought me to around the age of 10. I was standing outside with some other small alien-type beings, and I was really excited about something. And that year, I was planning on having a regression with Yvonne Smith, and so I brought it to her, having gone through things that were scary and traumatic, and I thought, I was excited. I want to know why I was excited. I want to go into this. And she said, okay, let's do it. And so I was able to actually explore that memory and expand upon it and see what else happened instead of just standing there excited and not having any other details. So that was really intriguing and not necessarily as exciting as I thought it was going to be.
Well, can I ask what is there an exercise that you did with Yvonne Smith to bring about that memory? You mentioned regression. What is it? What is it like? What does that mean?
Right. So when I say regression, this means a hypnotic regression. So it's called age regression. It's one of the techniques with hypnosis that you can use. And so she actually came to Roswell. I was in Roswell at the time for the UFO festival. She is usually a speaker there. And we went into her hotel room and I laid down on the couch, as you would expect, in one of these situations. And she was able to put me into a hypnotic state and took me back to that moment of that I remembered. You're here. This is what's going on. I was actually able to recall where I was, with that flash. I knew where I was. I knew the situation of what brought me to that place. I was around 10 or 11 years old. I was with my dad in Durango, Colorado for a softball tournament. Through the years, talking to my dad about that trip, he would tell me that it was a strange night because I kept getting out of bed and walking to the door. And he's like, where are you going? I have to go, is what my answer was. And he'd put me back to bed and I would get up and he'd say, where are you going? And I say, I have to go. And he says, you have to go to the bathroom? I mean, where are you going? Go lay down, but to find out that something further had happened that night was pretty interesting to me. And so Yvonne was able to walk me back to that night in particular, orient me to where I was, who I was with, and what was going on, and then move me further into the future. Okay, what happens next? And what happens after that? And so I was able to recall standing outside in a large group of people. There were several children and several adults gathered together, and we were anticipating the arrival of a ship. And one did descend through the trees. I remember hearing the scraping and breaking of the branches as it settled down onto the ground. We kind of lined up and filed into the ship. I was barefoot, and I can remember that the surface that I was walking on felt like astroturf, but it was black. It's really strange sensations. You know, you don't think about this as a memory pops up, but while you're in regression, you have all the senses alive. And so I'm like, wow, it feels like astroturf. I was taken into a room on the left-hand side. On the ship, everything seems round, like all the hallways, all the doorways, everything is rounded. And I was given an exam at the age of 10 or 11. This would have been right before puberty. And so I was actually stripped and had a pelvic exam, which is when I was like, oh, wait, this is not the fun I was hoping I would have. Right. I kind of want to take it back. You know, I don't want to go here anymore. And so, yes, that was very uncomfortable and not fun. I was not afraid. I just didn't like what was happening to me at the time. There were several small gray alien type beings that, you know, people describe all the time. You know, those typical grays, that's who I was working with here in this moment. After the exam, I was, you know, handed my clothes back, got dressed, and then I was taken into almost like a gymnasium. It was a very large room, lots of reds and blues. I was a gymnast at the time, so I associate that with like a gym of some sort. And it was like a geodesic dome. It was a very open and rounded, again, round room. The ceiling was as like almost like metal pipes, and it was in a honeycomb shape, and I could actually see the stars through the honeycombs. And you know, in this large room, there were different podiums set up. There was a podium with a being standing behind it and a child in front of it, and there were several of these stations. And I was taken to one of these podiums. The being that I was working with was very, very tall, probably 7-8 feet, something like that. It was not a small being. He was not, you know, like a typical gray. Obviously, if he's that big, he's not going to look like what people would think of as one of those little gray men. His skin was a mottled white, like a chalky white color. You know, I usually compare it to E.T. at the end of the movie when he's sick and dying. That's what this guy's skin reminded me of. His head was more elongated sideways. He had very round eyes up high, and his nose was up high. Actually very similar to E.T.'s itself. He was in a jumpsuit. I remember that as well. And he proceeded to teach me about manipulating gravity. So I was able to rise up and move around and float around and have fun. I enjoyed that. I remember him getting irritated with me, like, we got more work to do. You got to come settle down. I'm like, all right, fine. I'm having fun. But so I was able to settle back down. And then he taught me about the energy centers in the body, what we would call chakras at this point. And I could feel the vibration in my body. And it was at this point in the regression where Yvonne would say, okay, what happens next? And I could not go any further. Just the increase of the vibrating feeling would just get stronger and stronger. I'm like, I can't go any further. And so we were able to just bring me out at that point. Mm-hmm. So, very fascinating to have all of that come out of a flashlight in my eye, you know.
Wild. That is wild. So, you know, you're a counselor. So do you feel like somewhere along the lines you came into that profession to share information, to help people heal, to, you know, kind of along the same lines of, even as a child, what you were doing was, no, wait, before I get into that, you give your consent. Is that correct? Or do you feel like you said yes to them in some way, like this is okay? for me to be here?
You know, that's a really good question, and I do not remember as a human having given consent before this happened. However, you know, many people have talked about like soul contracts and things like that. What happened before I was born into this body? But also, you know, this is generations of contact for me. I'm not the first in my family. There are others in my family. And so it makes you wonder if there is some sort of, well, this is just part of life in this family, is these experiences. You know, there's at least 4 generations at this point that I know that have had contact. And so I don't know. Did I give consent? Did my parents, my grandparents? I mean, where does this start? And I wish I had the answers to that.
Right. So it from what I have been reading and the folks I've been talking to, my understanding is that it does happen intergenerationally in that if there's someone before you, usually the person is not the first person. There's someone else before them that has had an experience or that has outright, you know, been on ships and, you know, like you were taught how to fly essentially.
I was, yeah.
And shame on him for not thinking, you know, a 10-year-old is going to like just learn how to fly and sit down after that. Come on.
Right. Yeah. No, I wanted to continue. And he's like, nope, got work to do. Come back down.
Of course. Yeah. So now back to the other question I was asking.
Sure.
Being a counselor, do you feel like somehow in your subconscious, even though you know you weren't having these memories until you were a full adult, do you think somewhere in the subconscious you wanted to help people, you know, because of these experiences somehow?
Right. I think that a lot of contactees are actually very service oriented. We want to help people. We want to help the planet. We want to help each other. I think a lot of us just naturally do that. I have gone through several very difficult things in my life, and so I thought, well, how else would I want to go about this? I want to become a counselor myself. However, I also believe that it is, you know, piped into my head, this is the direction you need to go. I don't think that I made the decision to go back to school because I was a librarian. I was happy as a librarian. My background is English literature. That was my world, and I was happy in it until about 2012, and I was receiving these, it was just like being bombarded from outside. You need to go to school. Look at this. There's all these advertisements. It was just constant. Go to school, go to school, go to school. So I was like, fine, I'll go back to school. Not what I want to do, but I will, you know, listening to the universe in a way, like, you know, you get these coincidences and all these synchronicities, and you're like, I cannot just ignore this anymore. And then it became obvious to me that I needed to go into the psychological field. And that's how I fell into marriage and family counseling.
So I want to talk about your book, A Dirty Little Secret, Confessions of an Alien Contactee. So now I have one question off the bat. Why do you call it Dirty Little Secret? Why is it?
Well, I mean, that's multiple levels of why, you know, and I put it up on Facebook and I get these weird things. I'm like, that's not what this book is about. But, you know, it really has to do with this duality that contactees have to deal with. I have to function in everyday life, and yet I've got this secret, this information over here that is, it can be embarrassing. It can be, well, it's traumatic. You don't even want to go there. We could be ostracized. I could have lost my job for coming out as a contactee. And that's why it's the dirty little secret. My life is not, you know, complete. You only know part of me. There's this other huge part. And so that's why I named it what I did, because it was, I mean, that it just kind of defined this whole, I want to live authentically moment. And here's this is it. This is my secret. This is my life. Take me or leave me. And of course, once I published it, my boss at the time said, "You're not the craziest one on staff. It's all good." And so, like, thank you for not firing me right now for looking like I've lost it, you know. And I think that a lot of people, even when they are suffering and have all these issues that are coming up due to contact, do not feel comfortable going and talking to a therapist about it, because this is not, you know, an everyday thing that you want to talk about.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Do you feel like that generally comes from the stigma behind it? That, again, what I'm learning as I talk to folks like yourself is that, like, this happens way, way more often than anybody is talking about. And because the only bit, as you know, earthlings, lay people have of it, unless they're experiencing it themselves, is science fiction, TVs, movies showing scary aliens attacking the earth for no reason at all, you know, and we should be afraid. And so that stigma of this is something to fear, this is something not to talk about, this is something that is not real almost, right?
Right. Yeah. Those who come out and talk about it, there's something wrong with them. And I think that that is something that has been fought since the beginning of people starting to talk about this, you know, go back into the 50s and saying this happened to me, and you know, the stigma is there because of how strange and how scary it can be. I mean, if we're embraced, what does that mean? That means that we're telling the truth, which means we're not alone.
Yeah. Well, it also opens us up to incredible vulnerability, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Personal level.
Absolutely.
Earth level. Like, what can they do? Can they take us? Can they kidnap us? Can they hurt us in some way? Can they hurt the earth? But I'm finding more and more that that's not what people experience, contactees experience as the agenda. Do you feel like you've experienced a particular agenda from the aliens you've been in contact with?
Well, you know, and that's another thing that I wonder about. What is their agenda? And there's so many different entities that I have had experiences with. I don't know. I can't say what all of their agendas are. But what I can say is that many contactees will come out of these experiences with this compulsion to speak on particular matters. And they seem to be very similar, these stories, which is take care of the planet, because we're destroying the planet. We've got to take care of the planet. Another one is do not wage a nuclear war, because they're shown, you know, mushroom clouds and all these disasters that happen. Don't do nuclear war, and please love each other. And I'm thinking to myself, if these are the main things that we are, as contactees as a whole, are coming out of ships saying, like, we just have to take care of each other and we have to take care of this planet, how are those things bad? You know, I don't know what their agenda is, but boy, they're telling us some really important things for ourselves. And yeah.
It seemed, I mean, why would they? If they were trying to harm us, it seems like, why would they give us really good advice on taking live to each other? You know, why would they do that if there was a hostile agenda of some sort? To me, it doesn't really connect, but I don't know if that's supposed to think because some higher up knows the truth and doesn't want me to have my own opinion or something. In a way, it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I do feel like in our country, especially, we get half the information, and then that information is already invalid because it's not updated anymore by the time we get it. So I don't feel like we get the whole truth ever, you know?
Right. Right. And I think it's probably very similar in the mind of a contactee, because we don't have all the information, and usually in the moment we're not even cognate as to what is happening. One of the main questions I'm asked is, where are they from? How did they get here? And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm not thinking clearly when I'm up there to say, oh, hey, by the way, give me some of this information. But I do come back with these things, you know, the environmental and just love each other, love your fellow man, and that is what I just hear over and over and over again. What you know, the personal agenda that I have been given, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe they have specific missions for each person. But mine right now is healing the trauma. You've got to help others heal the trauma so that in these encounters, they can hear us clearly, because we can't tell you our agenda if you're going into this fear state. Because then it's going to be all clouded, and you're not going to come out of it understanding fully what we're trying to say, because you're afraid. And so that is what I'm receiving right now, is we can't go into these things afraid.
Right.
We've got to work on that.
Your book does touch on that. Your book does talk about, post-traumatic stress disorder, and it talks about panic attacks and anxieties and things like that, and making that connection to the experiences, to the contact experiences. Now, was that something you personally found through your experiences, or did you see that in others as well?
I do see it in others, but it was very much a personal journey for me. I have had trauma outside of the ET experience, and in fact probably impacted me more than the ET experience. But I cannot deny the fact that I was traumatized as a child. And, there were things in my life that once contact, it tends to ramp up like as a child, yes, it happens, but teenager up through, up into your 30s, it's actually quite invasive and it happens often. And so as I'm approaching 40, all of a sudden I'm afraid to turn out the light at night. I was not sleeping. I was, in this sort of paranoid feeling of they're going to get me tonight. Please don't come. Please leave me alone. Just let me sleep. But I couldn't sleep. And so the worse that I was getting this way, the less I could function at work. I was missing work. I wasn't able to concentrate. I was dozing off, all of these things. My whole world was impacted due to this early trauma. Mm-hmm. And so that is what brought me to, Yvonne Smith, to say, I've got to work on this. I've got to find some healing because I have got to get some sleep. I'm not sleeping, and so with the first regression I had, and that is what a regression will do. Will take you back to those moments of trauma in a very relaxed and calm state. You're able to, live through them again from this really relaxed and calm state, so that your brain can actually process it and put it away in a healthy fashion. Mm. And I really did not have any trouble sleeping from then on, and I still haven't. I've had a couple of nights where it's been tough, but, it was years worth of struggling just to have it stop, and I'm fine. Experiences continue, but I'm able to cope with them a lot better because I started to address it, and I think that's really where a lot of people are at. It's time to address it and work on it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's the old tale of you're not the only one, so if you Absolutely. Are brave enough and have enough, strength in you to share your story, someone out there is going to be like, me too, me too, me too. Now I can share my story. Now I feel okay. So what you're doing is really, it's more of, it's healing, it's not just, it's your own personal healing, but you really are helping countless others heal, because hopefully there's someone out there who's watching this right now and going, oh my God, that's me. This right. is, I can deal with it. Oh, that's how I get help. That's how I can sleep again, as you put it,
Right. Absolutely.
I commend you for that. And I commend you for this book, which was it a struggle to write? Was it a struggle to put it down?
Yes, it was a fight, because part of trauma is you don't want to go there. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to do it. And so I would find myself going off on tangents, finding every single excuse I could to not even go there. But I had a lot of support behind me, and just the voices in my head, not to sound too silly, but just, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. And I was able to do it. And I'm actually going back now and expanding on it, because I did kind of, it's out there, it's a whole piece, but I feel like I can add so much more to it now that I've come out the other side, if that makes sense.
You could probably do a book a year or something, and just new information. So let me ask you, you've been contacted since you were a young child, all throughout your youth, now into adulthood. Do you have any rough number of how many times you've been contacted in your life?
I have no clue. Sometimes there can be years between contact, and then sometimes it's 3 times in a week. It's hundreds, I would say, hundreds of times.
And do you learn something every time, or is it sometimes, I don't know what that was about, but okay,
Yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes I do learn things. I'm not going to say I recall what happened, but you know, if I can recall something, there's usually something important that happened, or you know, just information that I have that I can now disseminate to others. You know, yeah. So I mean, it's a process, just trying to even figure out what the heck. You know, I've gotten beyond the let me check myself for bruises. Like, did something happen? I've gotten to the point like, okay, no, I know something happened. Being fully conscious that it is happening. You know, I've moved out of that. Am I crazy? I think this might be happening stage into full understanding. So I think that that alone shifts how I come out of the situation, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It's acceptance, right? It's saying, no, this is okay. This is what's happening to me, and I'm here. I'm present. You know, which is extremely hard to do. I have difficulty doing it. You know, making a cup of coffee in the morning, let alone experiencing something otherworldly. So, I mean, that's wild. So if you could say something to our audience, if you could tell someone out there who might be going through the same experiences or similar experiences, you know, and they're afraid of it, or they don't know what to do, or they feel like they're going crazy, what would you suggest to them? What would you say? They give them advice.
Number one thing I would say is that you are not alone, that there are others out there. There are many places to actually go and get help. Oftentimes that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to reach out, but there are support groups. Facebook is an excellent tool. There are many different support groups that you can be involved in. In fact, I'm involved in many of them. Heck, you can just reach out to me personally on Facebook. I've got, you know, Dirty Little Secret has its own page, so find it, make sure it's my picture that's on there. But send me a message and we can help you get the help that you need, whether it's me or somebody else. MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network, also has what they call an experiencer resource team that has compiled therapists and hypnotherapists from all across the country that if you need help, there are people that can do it. And, you know, you're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah.
And there's help that is for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a big takeaway, right? We're not alone. One person.
Right.
That should make everyone feel a little bit better about their day, that you are absolutely not alone. Erin, thank you so much for joining us here on The Etiquette Show. We so appreciate your time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me.
Fabulous. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.
Oh, my